It's time for another edition of Saturday with Seniors right here on KC 101. A big thank you to our sponsor, Hemingway General Contractor. Hemingway General Contractor can sell and install a 95% efficient Luxair furnace that'll lower your gas bills. Plus, Luxair has the best warranty around, 10 years on both parts and labor. And Hemingway's includes this incredible warranty with your furnace package for free. For more information, call or text 662-6997. Now our guest today, we've got Harold House joining us here on Saturday with Seniors. We're on part 2 here. Born in 1934, December of 34, near Christmas time. Oh, you're a Christmas gift to your family.
One thing that, while I can think of it, my father was the oldest boy. There were 3 boys, but then Dad, Arnold, his brother, and myself, we were all born December the 15th.
All born on the same day?
Yeah.
Wow. Christmas, you all celebrate something together, but birthdays, you don't normally all celebrate together.
Yeah, because my Uncle Arnold, he lived with us. So Mom would always have a big, I won't say a big party, but we always had cake and something special to eat on that day.
You better hope Mom didn't forget one of the birthdays, because that'd be really insulting if you oh, I forgot it was yours too. So you were the youngest, the oldest, the middlest?
Well, I was the only boy for till I was 10.
So you're the much oldest of the siblings.
And then my sister Brenda was born, and then 2 years later, my sister Linda was born. And we had lost our sister Linda a couple of years ago.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
Just myself and Brenda now.
Yeah. So we talked last week a lot about the logging industry, and if you want to hear about that, you can go to our YouTube channel, KC101 Hometown Country. You just go to youtube.com, and you can hear that on there. But I want to hear a little bit about your outside logging life, what you did in your free time, what school was like then. Tell me about the school you went to. How big was it? Was it the school that we know now, Blossburg? Or actually, you went to a couple different schools, but I'm guessing.
The first school I ever went to was in Nauvoo, the New Link School.
That building's still there?
Yes, that's where I went first. I was 8 years old because they came that just before school and said to my mother, you got to put this boy in school.
So you didn't go to school till you were 8. They caught up with you and said, or your parents, I should say.
I'll tell you another thing. The Lee family that had the sawmills moved a sawmill down to Waterville, and we lived in the CC camps.
The civilian conservation camps?
Yes.
I met someone else who spent a little bit of time there, too.
Yes, and they had just left because all the beds are still there. All the kitchen utensils are still there, the stoves and all that stuff. And mornings, I would have to get up early, and at 6 o'clock, Dad would take me down to the hard road, walk me down. And then I would sit there until a car came along and picked me up. I never, ever found out his name or anything. You know how little kids are.
People were pretty quick to pick up kids and give them a ride to school. From what I've talked with people in Liberty that lived there in the 30s and 40s, and they said you just start walking to school and someone almost always pick you up and take you there.
Yeah. So this guy always picked me up, took me down to Waterville, and where the school buses stopped, I'd get out and sit in that little building until they came and picked me up. And then we went north.
What town are we talking about now?
Waterville.
In Waterville, okay. So south of Blackwell, below Morris.
Yeah,
downstream 15, 20 miles from Morris.
Route 44 is where we were on.
But you went to the Lynx School then, or I lost you on that? You were going to Lynx School?
Before that.
Okay, and then you moved down to Waterville because the sawmill was, okay.
Yeah, we lived there a couple of years is all. And I did not like to get up that early in the morning and stand there by yourself in the dark. And Dad couldn't stay with me because he had men coming in to go to work, you know, so it was up to me to get in the car, and then the bus would pick me up and take me up Pine Creek. But don't ask me what the name of the town was, but it was a one-room schoolhouse. And I went there for 2 years.
So what kind of bus picked up students to go to a one-room schoolhouse? Was that the entire bus?
Not buses like you see today. That were real.
I'm picturing how that would ever work with a one-room schoolhouse.
Yeah, it was a real small bus. They looked like buses, but they were very short. They only haul a few kids. And I went there for 2 years, and I was glad when we moved. I just didn't like that area.
So you went from that one-room schoolhouse, from the Link one-room schoolhouse to Waterville, and then where'd you go to school next? Tell me about what that was like.
Back to Nauvoo.
Well, back to the Link school.
Yes.
So what happened to the Link school? Is it one big room where so the teacher would teach one grade at a time,
Yeah,
and then you work on something?
I think there were 6 grades, and then the 7th would go to Liberty.
Mm-hmm. So was there a wood stove, coal stove in this
Yes.
one room? Typical, like what I picture, slate
Yes.
board and dunce cap in the corner too, or not? They didn't have those
They
here.
sat right in the middle.
If you were the dunce, you sat in the middle?
Yeah. I remember how the boys were. They'd get a jar, and they'd all pee in it.
Okay. Instead of going out to the outhouse,
you always had a kid in those schools that wanted to know what was going on. And this particular time, he'd see us passing it around.
Okay, the pickle jar here, that was okay. The relief jar.
When it was, we put the lid on really tight and threw it in the coal stove, and there was wood in it. Well, just as it got to him, he couldn't stand it no more. He wanted to see what we threw in there, and when he did, it exploded, and steam came out all over, and they had to leave the school out for a day.
Oh, my gosh. So did you get in trouble for that, or was that okay in those days to not go to the... it was an outhouse, right?
Such a small school, we all got the devil for it, but they didn't give us no days off or anything like that. And besides, we were young kids, you know. I mean, we just thought it was funny.
Otherwise, you had to go outside to an outhouse in school days.
Absolutely. It was a nice school at that time. It was fairly new.
Yeah. And did you bring your own lunch, or did they give you lunch at school then?
We had to take a lunch.
You had to bring your own lunch. There's no cafeteria, none of that. And then...
no cafeteria. Everybody pretty much brought the old homemade bread sandwiches, that type of stuff. You know? Maybe a couple bananas or something.
So then, once you got to 8th grade, then what school did you go to? Then you went to Liberty?
I came to Morris Run when I was in the 3rd grade.
And Morris Run had a school then?
Yes.
I assume.
A full school. I mean, 12th grade. They had an upstairs and a down. And
does that building still stand to this day?
No.
Or that's all gone?
No, it's all down now. And there was quite a few kids. I couldn't tell you how many, but it was like at recess, and there was a lot of people out there.
So Morris Run had a school, Arnott had a school, Blossburg had a school, and now it's not like that, obviously.
No. They bring the buses around and pick them up now.
Drive them all over the place in the biggest school district in the state here from end to end in Southern Tiger School District.
Yes, it was.
What was Morris Run like? Do you remember? There must have been stores because there was quite a few people. And
Morris Run.
I mean, now you can buy a stamp. I think that's about the only thing you can buy up there.
Yeah. Morris Run had a big store. The song, I Owe My Soul to the Company Store.
Yeah.
You know, that's how it was.
Was that actually the company store, that big old...
Yes.
I remember the timber, whatever was left of it, until about 15 years ago when it was finally taken down.
It was 3 stories high, and they made change up in the corner, and they would put it in a little jar, pull a string, and it would go up there, and pretty soon here it come back with the change and everything in it.
So all the money was handled in the back room there, not
and it was quite a few people every day there. Anybody that worked in the mines could go in there and get their food, and then on Saturday or whatever day, they settled up. And it was a nice store at that time. I mean, it didn't look that good after a while, you know.
Yeah. Everything has its heyday, but it was
nobody took care of it after the people owned it died, and it was sold.
That's too bad. There's a lot of really neat history in Morris Run.
Oh, yes.
You remember, have some other memories?
I remember going to the barber to get a haircut, and he would cut my hair, and one day that we were there, Dad went to pay for my haircut, and it was 75 cents, and he had a fit. He said...
Put it back. I don't want to pay for it.
Yeah. He said, last time I was here, it was 50 cents. Now it's 75 cents. Where's it ever going to end? You know, just like what we say today.
Yep.
Only it's on a smaller scale, that was all.
You just moved everything 1 or 2 decimals over there. There used to be a pretty big Polish festival that happened in Morris Run.
Morris Run.
This whole area, the miners, where the churches were, even masses were very Catholic town, and in Polish, the masses, until not all that long ago.
That's right. And not only Morris Run, but Blossburg had the same thing on the island. It was the old Boy Scout Hall is what they used for their picnics.
So did you go to any of those Polish picnics?
Oh, sure.
The polka music and the pierogies and...
Absolutely.
And all that?
Everything. It's like anything. There are a few fights around them. Somebody get drunk, you know.
Yeah.
Wasn't bad.
1% didn't do it right, but 99% had a great time there.
That's right, yes.
What did kids do for fun around town? Did they go out on their bicycles? What was the entertainment type thing?
Well, in the summertime, it was bicycles, and in the wintertime, it was ice skates. And they would put a little pond out behind where the school is now and let it freeze, and then the kids could go there and skate.
Oh.
And there was, that type of stuff. Some of us kids would hunt, so that's what we did. We hunted every day that we weren't going to school. We were hunting.
Well, I heard a lot of people say even on school days, they'd bring their gun with them, leaving them in the truck, and on the way home, they would hunt. I remember one person telling me that they brought their rifle and kept it in a locker in Wellsboro High School back in the 40s, and that was okay because it was okay, and it was never...
Well, we all knew how to handle weapons at that time. And our shop was not in the school. We had to cross the railroad tracks to go on the other side where the shop was. And I always enjoyed that. That was fun. I was never good at it, but I enjoyed it.
You think a lot more kids hunted back in your generation? I'm guessing it was more. It seems like we're losing that now.
Yeah.
It's not being passed down generation to generation the same.
No. The only thing that's handed down now is our sawmills.
Yeah.
Once you're a sawmill person, most people don't leave it.
It's like being an undertaker. A lot of families, if your grandfather was and your dad was, then...
Yeah, that's how it is.
Yeah.
This one here, Kevin, is third generation.
Kevin House is sitting over here. Then not everybody realizes that third generation logger there. And
he's the one that runs the mill. I'm not in it no more.
Your son was telling me one of your hunting partners was your teacher. You'd actually spend time with your teacher outside of school.
He was our basketball coach, so I was with him a lot.
Sounds like it's the basketball coach, hunting, and...
Yeah, and he, at that time, was living in Canton and came to Bloss. So he would drive over with a Jeep. He had a Jeep. And then we'd have our basketball, and he'd give me a ride home. So I got to be good friends with him.
Sure.
And my mom and dad didn't know anything about sports. And when I was 16, I played basketball, and I enjoyed it a lot. And my mom said to me one day, "What do you want for your birthday?" And I said, "I'd like to have Mr. Wirtz come eat with us, and then I'd like to have Mom and Dad go watch the game." They said, "Okay." And so I asked Mr. Wirtz. He said, "Sure." So he came for supper, and they went to the game. And when I got home, I said, "Well, Dad, what do you think of the basketball game?" He said, "If I take the whistle away from that guy, that would be a lot better."
Go a lot quicker, too.
He didn't understand,
Stop blowing that thing.
Yeah.
How old were you before you took your first, real vacation somewhere out of the area? Do you remember?
Oh, yes. A good time for us would be to go to Thousand Islands. Mm-hmm. We would camp out right under the big bridge that goes over.
Yeah.
We would camp down there. It was a little place to camp. And then Dad would take me out. He knew a guy up there that had a boat, so he would take me out fishing, and we always enjoyed that.
Some great family memories of going up there.
And then there was a movie somewhere Dad used to take us to. It was an outdoor movie. You sat in your car and watch it, and that was another thing that we liked to do up there.
Yeah.
So,
do you remember going on a plane ride? How old were you for your first plane ride? Was it quite a while?
Well, first, my Uncle Eugene had his own plane. So I was probably 12, 13 first time.
Okay, so a little plane.
Yeah. And I used to fly with him a lot after I got older. I remember a few mornings, he would call me on a Sunday morning and say, "What do you got planned today, Harold?" And I'd say, "Nothing." "Well, I'm going to fly to Chicago. I want to fill the plane."
A big plane that if you're flying to Chicago. That's not a little Cessna.
They were Cessnas.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah. And,
it's like taking a moped to Chicago, but okay, you can do it.
And so we'd fly, and he'd get his plane filled up, and we'd go have breakfast and then fly home. Mm-hmm. And I remember another time, and he took me to New York City that way.
Wow, that's neat.
And also, he liked to go out up over the strippings where if something happened, he wouldn't have to come down in town or anything. So he would do the stall. He would run it right up as far as it would go, and it would
straight up.
It would shut off, and then it would start straight down. And I remember thinking, I hope this thing starts.
That feels like a roller coaster when you're doing that in a plane, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Wow.
He had planes for years and years. As a matter of fact, I don't think about 4 or 5 years ago that he sold the last one.
Uh-huh.
And he just passed away a few months ago.
Oh, wow. That's another neat story. Did you ever hop a train in Blossburg to go anywhere?
No, I did not.
I heard of kids taking trains from Blossburg, just hopping on the back and getting a lift.
I remember the car that ran away in Morse Run, and they never got it stopped till it went through Mansfield.
I never heard that story. So what happened? This would someone accidentally let a actual whole car just free ghost ride?
Nobody knows what happened, but somebody took the brakes off from it, you know, because they had a wheel that you turn out and it would hold it. So evidently somebody let it go. And it was a big thing on the radios. They were telling where it was and how fast it was going and that type of stuff.
And how did it stop? And did it hit something in Mansfield and stop, or just post to a stop?
No, it finally slowed down enough. Somebody jumped down and
then it got the brake on.
Yeah.
How long ago was that? I'd love to try to find this one in the old newspapers.
I couldn't even tell you how long ago. I'm sure it was 20 years ago or so.
Well, yeah, that would be a dangerous situation. A train ripping right through town without much warning.
Yeah, that's what they were worried about.
Yeah. So did you spend time in Arnott as well?
No, not so much in Arnott. Chet Charant was a sawyer in a sawmill up in Arnott. So we played a lot of softball together. Yeah. So we would go up and visit them and watch the mill run. And that's basically all. I spent all my time pretty much in the woods or around sawmills. That's what I enjoy, you know.
I mean, there wasn't a TV when you were a kid.
No.
TV didn't come around until you were
my dad
20-something years old, I'm guessing you saw your first TV?
I think I was 15 or 16 when Dad put a line all the way from our old house down here, all the way to the top of the mountain. It was 2 wires, and he put that up there, and I remember some of the things that would happen. It would get real snowy.
The old Blossburg Cable Company predecessor there or whatever.
Yeah, right. He did it all himself. Him and one guy helped him.
And did it work?
It worked fine, but you only got one station.
One is a lot more than none.
And I remember the TV had a round screen, not a square.
Yeah,
it was round.
Kind of a green, round, radar-looking screen.
Yes. It would get so snowy you couldn't see it. Then somebody had to walk the line and find out what was wrong.
Yeah.
You know? So guess who had to do that?
That was your job, to go up the line and find the short in the line of where it was.
Usually something fell across it, you know. That was no big deal. But I always enjoyed being out in the woods. Always did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I watch very little TV. I'm kind of, I think, like you were as a kid. I seriously probably watch less than an hour a week of TV, if even that, and that's...
Well, now I watch...
I never leave feeling better watching it because it's news than I did before I started.
Oh, yeah. I watch too much TV now, but as being retired, and I've had a few operations, so I can't get out, so... That's pretty much what I do, is sit here and watch the trucks go up and down and watch my son work.
Yeah.
I got a pair of binoculars. I can look over there and see what's going on.
Watch it from afar.
Yes.
So I've known you as Pee-wee forever. Where'd that all come from?
Well, we were building a house just up 1 mile from where I am right now. And Francie Mitchell was a young guy at that time. And he was up on the ladder. And there was a handsaw set on the ground there. And he said, Harold, go get that. And I need it. So I went over. But, you know, as how kids are, you're just kind of moseying around. And he said, come on here, Pee-wee, let's get going. And that stuck with me till, well, today. The other day when I seen you downtown, a guy had just seen me and said, hey, how you doing, Pee-wee? Most people now call me Harold. I don't mind Pee-wee.
I was introduced to you as Pee-wee House back probably 25 years ago or so. But I ran to you at the farmer's table. And I said, how do you prefer to be addressed in the interview?
You know, Pee-wee is fine. I don't mind it. But I just thought I ought to have a first name on to start out with, you know.
So when you were in high school, I heard a little bit of your background here. You quit high school in 10th grade?
Yes. Halfway through the year, I was not happy what was going on, so I quit and went to work for my father.
Did you need your parents' permission to do this at the time? Or back then you could just
walk out?
Again, things are different.
Yes.
So you went to go work for your father, and was he supportive of this idea? And did he...
Yeah, he didn't say anything about it. He was that type of father. You know, he didn't care.
Your decision was your decision.
Anyway, I worked that rest of that year and all summer. And then I said to my father, I think I'd like to go back and go through 10th again. I think I'd be all right. And I did. And I went through 10th, got into 11th. Got about 6 weeks or so from the end, and I was passing. Well, I got in a fight with a teacher, so I was out of school.
An argument fight or
No, they
an
hit
actual
me.
fight?
I was just standing there sharpening my pencil, and somebody hit me, and I thought it was my buddy who was sitting right behind me.
Yeah.
And this person hit me with a book in the back of the head, and I turned around and down they went.
So you had no intention of doing this, but obviously the jury was not stacked in your favor.
I wanted to graduate, but 2 times and out for me. So I signed up for the military and spent 4 years in the Air Force.
Wow, I didn't realize you're in the Air Force. Your life has so many pieces to it here.
I know. I should have sit down and wrote down everything I want to talk about.
There's still time to do that, you know. So you didn't end up graduating. You ended up going on to eventually owning the logging company.
Yeah. So I went 4 years Air Force. I spent 2 years in Sampson Air Base here in the States.
Yep.
And I spent 2 years in Toulouse-Rosière Air Base, France, which is not far from the big cities.
Yeah.
And I was there 2 years. My first wife went over with me. And then we came home, and I got into the business with my dad. I first started working in the woods 5 years for myself, selling the logs and bringing the logs into my dad. Then it went from there on until my dad ended up with Alzheimer's, and he couldn't finish.
My dad has Alzheimer's also. I can feel for what you're going through.
Terrible. It scares me because I have vertigo. How do I know what's going to happen next? You know. And, but I am also happy that I lived 88 years.
You're very sharp for 88, very sharp for any age, but for 88 especially. So,
thank you.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. Anything else that you want to say along the way? Or if you could be born today or be born when you were born in 1934, would you trade it all in for the technology and the medical and everything else we have now? Or?
No, I loved my life up to this point, and I still enjoy it.
Yeah.
You know, but I felt lucky that I could be with my dad all the time. And
You've had some great people in your life, teachers who were there for you to help you out, your dad who was there to help you out, and experiences, and you're fortunate in all these crazy things you did that you're still alive to tell about it.
My dad was a great guy. He always had sayings. I wish I could remember them, you know. No matter what happened, he'd say something about it, and it always rhymed, and I enjoyed that.
Well, thank you so much. Harold House joining us here on Saturday with Seniors on KC 101. If you missed any of this episode or you want to hear the prior episode, this is part 2. Go to youtube.com and search KC 101 Hometown Country, and Saturday with Seniors will see all the episodes there. We're KC 101. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Saturday with Seniors here on KC 101. If you know someone who would be a good guest on our show, have them contact us here at the station at 662-9000. And a big thank you to Hemingway General Contractor. They sell and install Luxair furnaces. They'll lower your gas bill. So when it's time for a new furnace, call Alan or Brian at Hemingway's and ask about their Luxair furnaces and the financing options that are available. You can reach them at 662